There's another way to live. It doesn't have to be the way that you've always shown up. There is another way.
Your body has been speaking to you your entire life, and learning how to listen changes everything. This is the Underlying Answers podcast. It's time to restore the design. Today, we're talking about something that so many people silently struggle with: the pressure to hold it all together. From the outside, life can look successful. The responsibilities look like they're being managed. The boxes are being checked. But beneath the surface, many people find themselves overthinking, caring more than they can sustain, questioning whether they're doing enough, and feeling disconnected from the peace, clarity, and balance that they long for. At some point, what once looked like strength can begin to feel like exhaustion. The drive to get it right, be there for everyone, and keep moving forward can slowly become a long pattern of burden. And often, the very people who appear the most capable are the ones quietly carrying the heaviest of loads. Today, we'll explore the deeper patterns that contribute to overwhelm, burnout, internal pressure, and the loss of peace. We'll discover and discuss why so many people find themselves stuck in these cycles, what may be happening beneath the surface, and what becomes possible when we begin living from a place of greater authenticity, clarity, and inner alignment. Joining me today is Lori Pugh, a certified life coach who helps Christian women lead with peace in both business and life. In addition to her coaching work, Lori has spent more than 2 decades as an HR executive with a passion for professional development and helping people grow into their fullest potential. Through her work, Lori helps women move beyond overwhelm, overthinking, burnout, and self-imposed pressure so they can create lasting transformation and experience more peace, purpose, and fulfillment in their everyday lives. Lori, welcome to the Underlying Answers podcast.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm excited to be here.
So happy to have you. Let's dive right in. There's so much that I want to talk to you about. And let's just start a little bit with, how did you get into this work? What made you start working with Christian women, and why the passion for this direction that you're going into and that you now work with in life?
Well, as you mentioned, I've been in HR leadership roles for a very long time now. And, sometimes HR gets a bad rap, and I understand that. But, there's so many good things that we get to do as well. And one of those that I really had a passion for and still do is employee development, and really helping others become their best selves, and recognizing that, your work life, even though sometimes we try and separate the two, your work life and your home life and your spiritual life and all these other different types of lives, they really overlap, and it's really one life, and they all affect each other. And so, you know, there were many times where I'd have to have conversations, whether they be development conversations or other other conversations that maybe they needed some improvement in some areas, and you'd find out there's things that are going on in their lives that is affecting their business life. And I just thought, gosh, there's got to be more to this. And several years ago, I found life coaching, and so I got a coach myself, and I just ate it up. I just thought, this is exactly what I want to do. And so I did become a certified life coach about 5.5 years ago. But right now, those are the things that I do at night, as I say.
Okay.
Those, so that's my passion. Eventually, I'd like to move into doing it more full time. I do still work as an HR executive, but I get the opportunity to coach people daily, whether that be in business or in life. And it's just so rewarding. And it's not only for them, but it's been so rewarding for me as well.
Yeah, it's so fascinating what you do, because your day to day, they're really not separate. What you do all day
That's right.
long fully prepares you for the coaching work that you do with women.
That's
You
right.
you said something so powerful to me, and I want to go back to that really quick. You said that, as an HR professional, you see often that the lives are combined. We try and compartmentalize. Don't bring
Yes, we
don't
do.
bring your
Yes, we
personal
do.
life to work, right? But we
Yes, we do.
can't. We can't
That's
leave it
right.
all behind. It shows up. And so I'd like to just kind of talk about some of the patterns that you see that maybe are showing up everywhere in your life, in your in clients, or at your job, in the with the
Mhm.
professionals that you work with. What are some of the patterns that people try to hold back and not bring into their everyday work life, but they just are there because that's just who they are, and it's coming from their, like you said, the issues and the challenges that they've been through, or they're going through currently in their life. We try to keep them separate, but we can't fake it, right?
Yeah,
Can't fake
that's
it
right.
because those patterns show up. So what are some of those patterns that you see at your day-to-day job?
Yeah. Well, I think especially for women, women are very capable beings and we juggle a lot just by nature.
Yeah.
That's just kind of what we do. And sometimes we do it well and sometimes we think we do it well. And sometimes we don't do it well. And so what I find a lot is that yeah, women are trying to do everything and they're trying to be the best at everything when maybe that's not actually necessary. I hear a lot of women say, I have to get this right or it's all up to me. And that just adds a lot of pressure to ourselves. And so when I coach women, we try and take a step back and go, okay, where is this actually coming from? Where's this thought coming from? Because the thoughts that we have and the beliefs that we have then generate certain feelings. And then those certain feelings will generate certain actions or reactions or behaviors. And so if we can come back to where those thoughts are, and they're often based in fear, and if we can tackle those and recognize that there are other thoughts that are available to us in this situation, then it starts to change everything. And some thoughts we've thought for so long that we don't recognize that there's other ways of thinking. And I don't want to get too sciencey, but you'll probably understand this in that, there's the neuroscience of the patterns that our brain forms as we have certain thoughts over time. And our brain just automatically defaults to those because, oh, I'm in this type of situation. Oh, this is what I do. This is how I think about this situation. We don't know that that's happening. That's all subconsciously, but we then start to react in certain ways. And what the good news is those patterns can be interrupted.
Yeah.
And with a coach, this is what I learned for myself. It's like, oh, there's so many things that I'm telling myself, oh, I have to do it this way, or I have to hold all these, I have to hold all these degrees. I have to hold all these positions for me to feel worthy or to be of value. And you know what? I don't. I
Yeah.
really don't. There's there's just a lot that goes into as I work with women, just kind of peeling those back and recognizing, you know what? I don't have to do it all and I can do what I want. And that's another thing that I help women do is helping them decide just what they want to do
Yeah.
because there's so many, like I say, there's so many times we tell ourselves there's things that we have to do and there's so many things that we try to control, and that's where the exhaustion comes in. That's where the perfectionism comes in, and it's all based in fear. But what would it look like if you didn't have those thoughts? What would it look like? And we just start to slowly peel those things away and recognize that yeah, I wrote an article about this on Substack not too long ago where we often think that putting in all the effort and all the stress and all the things, checking all the boxes, we do all that and then we get the peace of mind. But what if we flip that around and what would it look like if we started with peace of mind?
Yeah.
Start with peace and then what would your efforts look like after that? And so
I
I
love
know.
that. It's so fascinating what you said about how we tend to look at checking the boxes, doing all the things right, and I love what you said earlier about not necessarily like being okay with it not being perfect, but we're not
Yeah.
okay with it not being perfect, right? We want
Yeah.
everything to be
Yeah.
perfect. And in the end, it kind of ends up being that not much is perfect because we're trying to be so perfect. And then we're finding ourselves in overwhelm and burnout and
Yeah.
high anxiety because there's too much on their plate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in your
I had a
experience,
mentor.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I had a mentor once tell me, Lori, not everything deserves your best effort. And with that being,
Mm.
with a mentor actually telling me that, I was like, that just gave me permission then to go, oh, and even when I was certifying as a life coach, one of the instructors used to say to us all the time, you know what, B minus work is okay. It doesn't always have to be A plus work. B minus work is okay. And again, sometimes you just need to have somebody give you that permission to say, you know what, B minus work is okay. It doesn't, not everything deserves your best effort. And
Yeah.
that just felt like relief to me.
Yeah. And it is relief when we sit back and go, oh, I don't have to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to be perfect
Yeah.
at everything. But that feeling of wanting to be perfect comes from somewhere, right? It's not just something that showed up one day. And when
Yeah.
we stop and really look at those patterns and where they came from, we can really start to see then, oh, this has been a pattern I've had for a very long time. I just
Yes.
actually left my ex brother in law, who's very much still like my brother, always has been. And I brought him some food. It's a long story, but he and I got talking, and he's just in a low place in his life, right? He's in a
Mhm.
low place in his life, and everything's falling apart. And he was saying it's this happening and this happening and this happening, and he was feeling overwhelmed by all the things happening to him, all the things on his plate. And I asked him, what if these things that are happening to you are really just your body and the world shouting at you saying there's something more for you, right? There's something bigger.
Yes.
And because I know him so well, he was talking about some anger he's having. His kids live countries away, so he's very disconnected. Not disconnected, but he can't, doesn't get to see them very often. He's very angry about the situation. And I say this with love because as he was talking about that anger, I said, I won't say his name. I said, I'm going to call you out on something. I've seen that anger my entire life.
Mm.
So he's looking at the circumstances now and that this is creating the anger rather than the pattern of how he deals with things when things get hard, which I as an outsider have been able to see forever. So when you look at your clients and you look at them being overwhelmed and full of anxiety, tell me about some of the patterns that you see that may have come from years ago that they just for some reason we look at the symptoms now and not necessarily where they came from, right? So
Yeah. That's so interesting. You hit the nail on the head where, yeah, you often find, as I do this, thought work and mindset work with women, it's usually feelings that we notice first. We notice feelings of anxiety, of stress, of anger, and we don't want to feel those things. We do things like shopping or drinking or eating or scrolling, these kind of things to buffer ourselves from having those feelings. And so that's usually what we notice first. But in the work that I do, we take a look at, like I mentioned earlier, it's a thought that we're having that we don't recognize that we're having, that of a certain circumstance that we are in that is generating those feelings. So a circumstance happens, some situation happens, we have a thought about it. We probably have 58 thoughts about it. We have a lot
right.
of thoughts about it. And then those thoughts are generating certain feelings, and then we act out in a certain way. So, what we try and get to is what are the thoughts? What are the thought patterns that you're having that are causing you to feel that anger? What are you thinking? So we usually take a look at a certain situation. Maybe somebody said something, and we think because so and so said this, I'm angry. But actually, the reason you're angry is the thought that you had about what that person said. And so, because what the person said is just a neutral experience, it
Right.
doesn't mean anything. It's just words. But we have a thought, a belief about that. We have an opinion, an assumption. We have we have certain things that we think about what that person said that then cause us to feel a certain way. And again, we take a look at those, and do you want to feel that way? And you can pick whatever thought you want. There are a gazillion thoughts out there that you can think about a certain situation, and you get to pick whatever you want to think about that. Also, I want to mention this isn't about being, having happy thoughts all the time, being positive thoughts all the time, because that's just not humanly possible. And that's just not reality. But it's just having that awareness and knowing that you have the power, and being intentional about how you want to then create your life, create the results, because it all starts with how you want to think about certain situations. It's not the situation itself, it's how you want to think about it. And that just changed everything for me. And so I'm assuming your ex brother-in-law has certain thoughts that he's thinking about these certain situations, and that's causing him to feel certain ways. And he can totally do that. That's totally fine. It is his prerogative. But if you once you recognize that you have the power to and authority to change those, or be very intentional about the results that you want, it changes everything. And not giving, I've heard somebody say, the remote control to somebody else about your life and how you get to feel. It's not handing that remote control over to somebody else or a certain circumstance that then dictates how you are going to feel for any given situation. No, I get to be an intentional participant in how I am going to create my life. And again, there's going to be, if somebody, I always use the example, if somebody comes up to me and punches me in the face, I don't want to feel good about that. So I'm going to have some serious thoughts about that. That are going to make me feel, probably angry and upset and irritated or whatever it may be. But I know that's because I am choosing that.
Yeah.
I am choosing that. And so again, once you have that awareness, I think that starts to shift it for people in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it definitely does, and that's where it starts, is with awareness,
Yeah.
right? Looking
Yeah.
at
Just the awareness. Yeah.
and the emotions behind the awareness, like I recognizing, oh, this is in it's triggering, which is a big word. I don't necessarily love that word, but it's triggering a feeling, and then it's my thought that I feel, that I think about the feeling, and then I'm
Mhm.
reacting on that thought, right? And so by just being aware of all of that, gives us the power back to
Yes.
do
It's
something about it.
very empowering. Yeah.
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 And I
Exactly.
love that you said we get to. I'm a big get
Yes.
to person. I get to
Yes.
feel, right? I get to make these choices for my life, and I get to
Yes.
look at things different and choose peace over pain, right? And
Yes.
it doesn't mean there's no pain amongst the peace.
Yeah,
It's just that,
that's just the human experience.
yeah.
That is what it is. And I think too, especially in the work that you do, we hold a lot of those emotions in our body.
Yes.
And and it can be for our benefit or to our detriment. And so learning to where those emotions are coming from, and learning then to allow those emotions and to process those emotions instead of stuffing them or buffering them, I mean, can help all the areas of your life, your physical, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, all those areas of your life can really start to heal when you learn to process and allow those emotions, and also be very intentional about what emotions you want to feel. So if I want to feel, that's often where I start with some clients, where they'll come to me and say, well, this happened today at work, and it made me really angry, or whatever the emotion may be. And I'll just say to them, so tell me, how do you want to feel about that situation? And it kind of stops them in their tracks for a second, because they don't realize, what do you mean? How do I want to feel about a situation? Because you can choose whatever you want. It doesn't mean that you have to feel happy about it. And it doesn't mean that you also have to feel angry about it. How do you want to feel about a situation? And then that's what we start to work towards. Because if they want to feel a little more confident in a situation, then we're going to work towards that. But going from being, very shy, or resistant in a situation to be very outgoing and confident, that's going to take time, but it's possible. That's what I focus on quite a bit, is that all these things are possible. There's another way to live. And doesn't have to be the way that you've always shown up. There is another way.
Yeah, there's another way. And that's true for all of us. And we get choice,
Yes.
right? We get
Yes.
to choose. It doesn't mean we're choosing like life is always peaceful, because that, like you said, that's not reality. But we get to choose what path do we want to take to get where we want to go, to get to
That's right.
that place of feeling peaceful, right?
That's right. It's interesting that you said that, because just this morning I was working on some content, and I was realizing that I think sometimes we have this idea that, peace of mind or just peace alone is just calmness and stillness and, all those kinds of things. But in my mind, peace can show up in different ways. And I was just making a list of them here, and I just happened to bring it with me because I think sometimes peace can show up as courage, peace can show up as grit,
Mm.
it can show up as confidence, spunk, it can show up as strength, it can show up as determination, as authenticity, it can show up as faith or trust. It can also show up as intentionality. So peace doesn't necessarily mean stillness and that nothing's happening. Peace can show up in all those different ways. And once you start to learn how to act in intentionality in all those different ways, your results just, it doesn't mean horrible things aren't going to happen in your life, but if they do, you can act on them in intentionality in a way that brings you more peace and confidence. And I think
Love that.
that's what's the most important.
Yeah, I love that. Peace is grit, peace is courage. Like that
Yes,
feels so powerful and so true. We think of so what I relate that to is nervous system regulation, right?
absolutely.
When we're
Absolutely.
peace is a regulated nervous system, and sometimes that looks like courage, and sometimes that looks like grit, and sometimes that looks like sitting in meditation, and sometimes that looks like laughing and joy and just, but it has to do with our nervous system being regulated. That is what brings the peace in all of those areas.
100%. 100%. Yes.
So then when you think about, okay, let's say I'm going to be courageous today and go do this thing, but it's not peaceful because it's really hard for me because it's not something I normally do, but I am going to still be courageous about it. There's something that's holding them back from being able to be courageous. Maybe in the past, courage was scary for them, or courage didn't work out for them.
Mhm,
Maybe they were
mhm.
courageous and they got shot down or they failed or whatever. How do you help your clients work through those things that bring them back out of that into dysregulation, out of regulated nervous systems, so and then back into courage being, peaceful again?
Yeah. So I think sometimes we think that I'm either courageous or I'm afraid. And, but what if you can have both? It's like, yeah, I'm nervous to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've had failures before, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the more it becomes less scary. And that happens a lot when I speak with women who feel like they're suffering from imposter syndrome. That's a whole different thing. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily believe in imposter syndrome, because I think it's just a normal part of life, and that usually comes up when we're doing something that we haven't done before. And so we're nervous about it. And of course you're going to be nervous about it. You haven't done it before. And of course people might say these kinds of things. They may not. It's very normal to have those types of feelings. And I think that's often where we start, is that nothing's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you if you are having these feelings. This is a very normal part of human experience. Now, let's take a look at what it would look like if it was 1% better or 5% better. And let's get used to that. Let's normalize that feeling. And what would it look like if it was 10% better? Okay, now let's normalize that feeling. And because it's still not 100% confident, it's just learning by by degrees. And so it's getting comfortable degree by degree. I know that's been helpful for me to be able to look at it at piece at a time, because if you're looking at an event or a circumstance in your life where you're thinking, I there's just no way I can get to that. Well, if you're trying to bite it all off in one chunk, you're right. It's not. That's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But learning by degree is really where the most amount of coaching has come in for me, or the most amount of help from coaching has been for me. And, you're not supposed to learn it all overnight. And I think we get that a lot in our day and age right now, where everything comes so quickly and in, bite-sized pieces. And we learn there's so much information out there, and we want to be able to become something so very quickly. And we miss the journey. And I think that's really important to remember, is that it is a journey, and but we start it a little bit at a time, and it's nothing to be afraid of, and it's very normal. And so helping people to understand that from the get-go is often very helpful.
I can see that. Yes. I like the degree, like just a little bit at a time, right? We're going to heal. We're going to learn to do it a little bit better, get a little bit stronger, work towards our goals of what we want, just a little bit, a degree at a time. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Now, you work with women who put tremendous pressure on themselves to get everything right, right? So,
yeah,
where do you think that that pressure comes from? And how do you think that it eventually starts shaping their identity? Because sometimes we take on identities, right? We become the person, well, this is just my life. I'm just busy. I'm always busy. And it becomes an
yeah,
identity. Where do you think that starts? How do you think that shift happens over their life? I mean, obviously things happen slowly where we end
yeah,
that's why we don't really notice when it's happening. Sometimes we get slammed, right? And we're like,
yeah,
this we just
yeah.
got a huge awakening. But for most of us, these patterns start to show up slowly over time. And so where do you
Yeah.
think that pressure starts in most of your clients? What do you notice about that?
Well, I think it actually starts with really good intentions, because women do care deeply. We're very responsible, and we want to make contributions. So, all of those things I think are with good intentions. But I think where it starts to shift is when um, we start saying things to ourselves. Well, um, I'm I'm only of value if I do things well. I'm only of value if I um if I care this deeply, or if I'm this compassionate. Instead of saying, I'm just a person that likes to do things well, we take it to a whole new level and say, well, I'm only of value if I do it this well. And so that's where it starts to shift into more of perfectionism. And that's where it just becomes really exhausting, because then we're very fearful of making mistakes, and we're very fearful that we won't be productive, or that we won't be of value. And so that's where it starts to get dangerous. And so, again, I think it starts with good intentions, but when it starts to affect our identity, then I think I think seeking help, as far whether it be a therapist or a coach, something along those lines, would be really helpful, because once we're able to separate your worth, which never changes, you are always worthy, from your performance, which can go up and down and doesn't matter. They have nothing to do with each other. Your worth is always there, and your identity does not have to be aligned with your behaviors, your performance, your feelings, your actions. Your worth is just your worth. And and sometimes that takes a little bit of time to work through, and we can do that.
Yeah, I agree. I do think most people in general are good people with good intentions and we're just
Yeah.
doing the best we can. And we get to look at, is this serving me? Right? I play
Right.
this identity of overworking and being stressed all the time and well, I'm stressed all the time because I have to do this and I have to be the best and all these identities we've taken on and they're just no longer serving us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And why
Yeah.
do you think that is? Why do you think so many people have lost access to peace, to clarity, to balance? Even when they think that they're doing everything that they believe they're supposed to be doing, why do you think that with that good intention and with the hard work and doing everything that they believe they're supposed to be doing, how are they still losing access to that peace?
Well, I think oftentimes we find ourselves getting confused with external success and internal well-being,
Mm.
and they're not the same, and so I think that when we start to do that, we get really exhausted, and really, it can be really upsetting. um But what I've come to learn is that peace really isn't something that we earn after we've completed enough tasks. It really comes from alignment. And so let's take a look at what are the things that you value? What are the things that are of most worth to you? And let's align your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions with those types of things. You had mentioned that, we often think, well, I've got to do this, I have to do this, I have to do that. And I remember working with a client once where she was talking about she was taking care of her little dog that was getting old in years and needed a lot of care and a lot of attention, and she was saying, well, I have to do this for him, and I have to do this, and then I have my husband, I have this, and I have to do this. And I said, you know what if I told you you don't have to do any of it? And she says, well, I have to, otherwise, he's going to get sick or he's going to do that. And I'm like, what if I told you you don't have to do this? The reason you're doing it is because you want to do it. You want to take care of him because you don't want him to pass away or prematurely. You want to do it because of this. You want to do it. And that just started to shift everything for her. And I would I would recommend your listeners do the same thing. If you're telling yourself, "Well, I have to do this and I have to do that," because oftentimes we're looking for that external validation or success. Do you really have to do it? Because most of the time you don't have to do anything, but you do these things because you're looking for certain things, or and it's totally fine. It's totally fine to want to do these things. I'm not saying you shouldn't do them, but you're doing these things because you want your children to eat healthy. You want them to go to school. It's not that you have to, it's you want to. And so when we start putting those pressures on ourselves that, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I would say take a step back. How much of that do you really have to do? And how much of it are you wanting to do? And why are you really wanting to do those things? Is it because you're looking for a certain validation, or certain things that make you feel better or that other people say you should be doing? So we really dissect that a lot in coaching. And but that's something that I think a lot of people might be helpful to just take a step back and go, do do I really have to do this?
What a beautiful paradigm shift from have to want to. And when you think of even the energy behind that, think about those words. Like if you say, I have to go do this versus I want to go do this, it just feels so different in the body.
Yes. Yes.
And we're bringing that energy into, so if we're saying I have to go do this, it's like dragging, bags of sand behind me because I have to go do this
Yes.
versus I want to go do this. I picture just like, bouncing and going, I get to go do this. And the other
Yes.
thing that came to mind as you were saying that is when we do something, if we don't, let's say we feel we have to do something and then we don't because our body tells us no and we get sick, or something else happens and we have to shift our day and we're not able to do it. When it's a have to, basically, then we start with the guilt and the shame.
Yes.
I was supposed to
Yes.
do this and I didn't. And now all of a sudden we're guilting ourselves and we're shaming ourselves. And, but if it's a want to, I want to go do this. Oh, but it didn't work out today. I can go do it another time. That guilt and that shame just kind of goes away.
Yes.
So I really
Yes.
love that analogy of the difference between wanting versus have to and just looking at it different. Because then
Yes.
we're empowered to choose too. Because when we want
Absolutely.
something, we're actually choosing it.
Absolutely.
And it's not like
Absolutely.
I have to do this. It's like almost a victim state, right? Of I'm being pushed to do this or forced to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
so when you work with mostly Christian women, correct?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'd like to know when someone starts to let go of the need to carry everything, to fix everything, to be everything for everyone, how does that change their relationships with themselves, with their health, and with their faith? I'd really love to understand like what do you see and tell my listeners what is possible for people, for individuals when they start really letting go of that need to carry everything and they start doing things from that place of wanting versus having to.
Mhm.
What do you often see in the shifts in their relationship and their health and especially in their faith? I really want to hear how that changes and helps in their faith.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the very first thing I usually see is relief. And that, I mean, that alone is, priceless. And so once they start recognizing that they have the ability to just exhale and do things that there is another way of living. It doesn't have to be this way as we've said. They don't have to carry it all. They don't have to do things in a certain way to feel worthy or to be worthy. It's just it's life changing. And I don't say that lightly. It is life changing. And it really does bring them a lot of relief. I mean, I see, relationships get better because oftentimes as we mentioned early on, even though I'm coaching women, oftentimes it's in their professional lives, they overlap. And so it becomes just general life coaching, which is great, which is what I love. Um, but I often see them in their faith journey, especially, they rediscover trust, and not only trust in their creator, but trust in their relationships with um, family members, with friends, community, and they stop acting like everything depends on them, and remembering that God is God and that they are not. And really, probably most important, they start reconnecting with themselves because so often, especially as women, we are built to help others, which is great, and to take care of others and to build others, but we forget about ourselves. And it's not selfish, because that's another thing that I hear folks say. It's not selfish to take care of myself, and I get to give myself permission to be happy and do what I want to do. So it's just, it's like I say, the number one thing I always come back to is relief, because so many women have been searching for that for so long. And it's, again, and it's not about being perfect. It's not doing what you feel like you have to do or somebody else says you have to do, and it's no longer fighting that and feeling so exhausted all the time, that you get to be who you want to be and how you want to show up in life.
I love that you said it's really ends up being that we come back to ourselves because I strongly believe that God speaks through our bodies. And when we're in that state of dysregulation and when we're unhappy and we're stressed all the time, that to me is actually God speaking through our bodies saying, you're not living in alignment with your truth. You're not living in
Yes.
alignment with
Yes.
what is possible for you, right? And it's helping you to look at that. So when we come back to ourselves, we get to start noticing those those patterns within us that aren't serving us. We get to start looking at, oh, I get to take care of me
Yes.
first. And maybe not even first, because we don't always get to take care of us first. If we have
Yeah.
kids, we sometimes have to take care of our kids before we can
Yeah.
even go brush our teeth or do anything, right? But we get to pause and take care of ourselves. And this is, in my experience and with my own life, I didn't do that. I spent 34 years chronically ill, and my kids never learned to take care of themselves first because I didn't teach them that.
Mm,
I took
interesting.
care of everybody around me. I was that overachiever. I was chronically ill.
Yes.
I went to college and got a degree and worked and raised 3 kids and did daycare in the summers, and I did it all at the expense of my own body, and
Of
then at
you.
48, I almost died, and God was speaking through me that whole time saying, "You matter just as much. Pay attention to you." What I love is that my kids didn't become that. They learned from that. And my daughter, who now has my 3 grandbabies, is just so good at incorporating
Oh,
her
that's beautiful.
wellness and her self-care along with the kids. And
That's beautiful.
it is. And so what you're saying is so true, that everything you're talking about comes down to coming back to ourselves.
Yes. Because I really think that the discomfort maybe is not a problem. It might be an invitation.
Yes. I believe it's 100% an invitation.
Yeah.
Our body communicates with us. It doesn't fail us. It's not, it's yelling at us because it
Oh,
wants
yeah.
us to know something, right?
Yeah.
All those years my symptoms were communicating with me, heal me, feel me, know me, feel these emotions, don't shove them away, right? And
Yeah.
it took me coming back to my body and coming back to spirit to say, to know that I can actually heal,
Good.
right? And
Yes,
so
absolutely, 100%.
I love that what you're saying is the more you're seeing your clients heal, the more they're coming back to themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Lori, thank you
And
so
really
much.
being in partnership with God and
Yes.
not having to take things all on your own and really
Yes.
being in a partnership with him.
Yes. Thank you so much for this conversation,
You're
Lori. I'm
so
really
welcome.
excited to have you on and grateful.
My pleasure.
And if you can just take a few minutes and just let the audience know how to find you. And of course, we'll put all
Yes,
the information in the show notes as well. But just tell them a little bit about your coaching, what you do, and where they can find you.
you bet. You can find me on my website, which is loripugh.com. Very original. My Instagram is Lori Pugh Coaching, and I should say it's spelled LORIPUGH Coaching. I have a Facebook page, which is Lori Pugh Life Coaching. I do quite a bit on Substack these days. And so I have at least an article a week. And you can find me on Substack at Lori Pugh Coaching. So, and I'm like within the next couple of days, I don't know when you're going to release your podcast here, but within the next couple of days, I'm going to be releasing some summer coaching packages. And so I'm excited about that. So anybody that wants a summer glow up in their life, um, feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
I
And
love
I'd
it. A
love to
summer
meet as
glow
many
up.
of you as possible.
I love it. Well, those of you that resonate with Lori, look her up. And I love the visualization of a summer glow up. That's beautiful. Thank you again, Lori, for this really beautiful conversation.
You're so welcome. My pleasure.